Welcome back, everyone. I'm the Bad Luck Gamer, and we have an amazing video today because today is the first time ever here on the channel I have been given review material early to present to you all. And I'm just so excited to get started with this video. That's right, we're talking about Treasure Vault, and more specifically, the unique archetypes that were introduced in this book. This is the beginning and the first introductions of what are known as artifact archetypes. And they are archetypes specifically around your character finding an archetype or an artifact. Your character finding an artifact, blah, really early in their adventure by like level 2, and it changing their life with its power and the abilities that it grants you. It's a very interesting system, and I also love the fact that they added a whole section about free archetype along with the artifact archetypes, as the artifact archetypes were intended to be used with the free archetype rule. It's not a hard rule, but they do highly recommend it, especially because the artifact archetypes go from level 2 to 20. It's very, very interesting. So we're going to go ahead and get into the first in the book, which is going to be the Ursine Avenger hood. So the Ursine Avenger hood is a cave bear skull and pelts that you drape over your character. It's a worn item of light bulk. And just wearing the artifact and attuning to it or investing to it allows you to get a +1 bonus on your nature checks to command an animal, and that increases to a +2 if it's a bear. And speaking of bears, we're going to be hearing a lot of our furry friends in this video, so hope you like bears, because there's a lot of bear in this bear-focused archetype. Now, the hood also does come with some penalties, I guess, some side effects, and that's going to be you suffer a -1 to diplomacy and gather information checks, and also to make impression checks if you stay in a large city or large town for more than a work week. So if you're any longer than 5 days, you start suffering the -1 with status penalty, item penalty to these checks until you spend at least 4 hours out in the wilderness. It does say large cities specifically. So if you're in a small enough town, kind of urban, or not urban, a rural kind of area, you don't need to worry about this. It's just when you're in, big metropolises that you need to worry about this. Honestly, it's not a big deal. Though the bonus to commanding animals, I mean, it can be good in some character builds, I suppose. And commanding bears, if you have a bear companion maybe, or not even like an animal companion, the bonded animal feature, this might work a little bit better because your companion just already trusts you. But still, this is interesting, and this is just from wearing the hood itself. Now, I do need to specify, when it comes to these artifacts, once you invest in them, you cannot invest in another artifact archetype ever until this one gets destroyed. And they are artifacts. So, lore-wise, artifacts are incredibly hard to destroy. And we can see here that in order to destroy the Ursine Avenger hood, you must soak the hood in the blood of a Linorm that is at least 16th level, and then burn it in a fire that uses only oak and chrysanthemum as fuel. Not that difficult compared to a lot of other artifacts that are out there, but still nothing a low-level character would be very capable of doing. And killing a Linorm puts you at risk of their death curse, which is really bad. Now, the reason for this is actually included in the lore behind the Ursine Avenger hood, but I'm going to leave that out because I feel like that's something that you should get the book for, or at the very least wait for the full release. It's a really good book. They got a lot of really cool things here. I'm just going over what it gives you and, of course, the destruction feature, because that is technically a feature of the hood as well. But yeah, so once you invest in these, you cannot invest in another one until it's destroyed. And a lot of them, it's pretty much one per character, and once you put it on, you're set, So choose wisely when it comes to picking up an artifact archetype. But let's go ahead and see what the archetype actually gives you. So we're going to start off with the first feat here, but I do want to state as well, before we get into it, you do not have to take these with your feat choices. Even if you are using the free archetype rule, you do not have to select these. And the first one here, the Ursine Avenger form, is not a dedication feat. So even if you select this at level 2, you can select a different archetype at level 4 because you don't break the rule. Now, it depends on how your GM is doing free archetype, and they do stipulate that a little bit in the prior section in the book, but it's just something I wanted to mention, that it's not a dedication feat, so you're not held by that saying you need to pick 2 feats to select a different dedication feat. So you can intermix these feats with other archetype feats that help blend your character a little bit together. But let's go ahead and start talking about the actual feats here. So the Ursine Avenger form is essentially the animal instinct barbarian feature when you go into rage. And so what it does more or less is it's an action, and you put the hood on and you become more Ursine. You gain a jaw attack that does a D10, I believe. No, a D8. And a claw attack that does a D6 and is agile. Now, the jaw attack is piercing, and the claws are slashing. Other than that, nothing else, but you do get 2 really good unarmed attacks. And if you're not a class that normally gets like the powerful fist feature, this is a way to have unarmed attacks that do lethal damage without having to worry about that -2 penalty. Now, there's some stuff here, and I'm gonna read it here because it has some peculiarities. So, once you're in this form, you lose the ability to speak complex sentences while transform and can only communicate through grunts and gestures. This prevents you from using effects that require a shared or spoken language until you revert back to your non-hybrid form. You can use this action while transforming to remove the hood and return back to normal. So, you can't use any features, feats, whatever, that require that you share a language with someone or that they can understand a spoken language. Now, I don't know how this affects spellcasting. It doesn't actually say it prevents spellcasting, though you could say that if your spells require verbal components, you can't use it because that would require a spoken language. That's a little bit more vague. And obviously this archetype is not meant for spellcasters, it's more meant for martials, so it's not that big a deal, but still there's a little bit of vagueness here. I think how I would go with it is you can still cast spells as normal. It has morph, which isn't the same as polymorph. It doesn't prevent you from using the spells, but I think it can be argued either way. And it's just an action to remove the hood anyway. I just don't feel like you need to muddle things up by, oh, well, take your hood off, then you get the effects. You know, that just seems very silly to me. But I did want to point it out because it did mention this. And if your character knows sign language, and obviously if other people understand sign language, at least you can communicate easily with that. Again, it's just like a very specific thing with the hood. Otherwise, the big thing is you get really good unarmed attacks. And of course, this form applies to other feats later. So it's a good start to this archetype dedication. It just makes you essentially get a lot of the benefits of the animal instinct, bear barbarians without needing to rage or getting the benefit or the downsides of raging. Though, other than that, you don't do any additional damage. Next up is Sense of the Bear. You gain low light vision and an imprecise scent of 30 feet. Now, if you already have low light vision, this becomes dark vision, which is pretty good. There's a lot of ancestries out there that get low light vision anyways, so this is a really good way to get dark vision. And imprecise scent is not anything that I would ignore, especially because for invisibility, which is the most common way enemies can elude the players, this can prevent the enemies from becoming undetected. Now, an enemy who is invisible, who then uses a stealth action and succeeds, becomes undetected from hidden. So with this, as long as they're within that 30 feet, they're at best hidden. Now, this doesn't make hidden enemies concealed. So the best this does is just makes it so that enemies can't become undetected as long as they're within that range. It's still a decent effect, though a little bit niche. And dark vision is obviously way more helpful. So this is something that I would say pick it up if your character doesn't already have dark vision or if you intend on using more dark vision. But if the rest of your party doesn't have dark vision, it's kind of pointless anyway, as they're going to need a light source more often than not, so it removes some of the benefits. in any regard, it's a not half bad feat. All right, at level 6, you get a really interesting feat. It's called Bear Hug, and as a requirement that you made a successful claw strike, claw strike right before this action, then you take the action and you make another claw strike, and if it succeeds, the enemy becomes grabbed without an athletics check. Pretty good, honestly. And because the claws are agile, that means that your second attack is at most a -4. And if you're a flurry ranger, it's like a -3 or even a 2, depending on the situation. So no, yeah, -2, depending on the situation. So it's a really good feat, especially for rangers who want to kind of take this opportunity to kind of add some bear damage to their kit. I like it. It's a good way to get an easy grapple with just 2 actions, and you don't have to worry about that multi-attack penalty applying against your athletics. So this is a pretty decent feat overall, and there's a lot of ways that grapples can be turned in your favor. Now, at level 8, you get Call Ursine Ally, and essentially what it does is you get access to the 3rd level Summon Animal spell as an innate spell, and once per hour, you can summon a bear. Now, it has to be bear specifically, so with the 3rd level version of the spell, you get Black Bear, then it goes up to Grizzly Bear, Polar Bear, and eventually Cave Bear at level 14. Now, I will say that this is not a combat feat. It looks like a combat feat, but this is not a combat feat, mostly because whatever you summon is going to be so low leveled compared to the enemies that you're standardly fighting. That what you're summoning is essentially chaff. Now, to be fair, when you summon the Cave Bear at 14th level, that is at least, the bear is level 6, and it is roughly, anyway, capable of doing stuff to like the chaff enemies in your fight. It's got 96 hit points. I don't know. It's something where combat efficiency wise, this is not the best. Summoning spells already kind of suffer from this. There's other ways that summoning spells are very, very useful and I think are really good in combat, but this kind of summoning specifically, even though it's once per hour, they are a little more than just hit point sponges that you can hopefully throw at your enemies to distract them a little bit. Now, the bears do have really good athletics, and they are capable of potentially hitting enemies or even grappling them or tripping them or whatever. So they're not completely useless. Is it worth 3 actions to do? I don't know. That's up to you. But I will say, outside of combat, this is an amazing feat. Because, I mean, how often would having a bear on command be helpful? There's a lot of situations you can flush a bunch of people out of a room because a bear just suddenly storms through, scaring commoner level folk. There's a lot of situations where this one in particular is really handy. I just wouldn't pick this feat if you're looking to enhance your combat abilities, as more often than not, the bear isn't going to really be doing that much, and you're going to be spending an action to command them. So it's up to you. I'm sure, it's a good way to get flanking, I guess. Spend an action to automatically get flanking. Not bad. With a chance of it doing damage. I mean, when you put it like that, right, it kind of makes a better feint. Because you command the creature, it flanks the enemy with you, and it also attacks, which means that it's a feint that potentially can do damage and is an automatic, flat-footed. So, yeah, there's some situations in combat where at the very least, it can be helpful. It's just sacrificing a whole turn to do it can be a little rough. It just depends on your group and your combat situations. At level 10, you get Bear Empathy, which allows you to communicate with bears and other Ursine-like creatures at the GM's discretion. That's it. You can talk to bears. It's fun. But that's about it. Next up at level 12 is Great Bear, which is actually really good. Once per hour, when you're using the Ursine Avenger form as you're transforming, you can spend an additional action to get the effects of Enlarge, making you a large creature, extending your reach by 5 feet, and also you get a +2 damage to your attacks. Really good, honestly, and it's just an additional action to essentially transform and get the effects of Enlarge, which Enlarge is normally a 2-action spell. So there's no reason why you shouldn't be using this, because it's only a big boon in combat and it just costs you 1 additional action, which I think is very valuable. And again, once per hour, this archetype is really good because it's very rare that archetypes ever give you spell-like abilities once per hour. Now, it's not that they're completely unheard of, it's just very rare. And any feats that give you spells like once per hour or something are potentially really, really good. It just depends on how your campaign days run. But regardless, it's a very good feat. Next up at level 14 is Terrible Transformation, which is very similar to the Barbarian's Mighty Rage, which allows you to like use like a demoralize action if you have the feat that makes all the intimidation actions rage actions. Essentially what it does is that when you use your Ursine Avenger form, you can intimidate an enemy with a demoralize within 30 feet who can see you, and you don't take penalties for them not understanding your language, which is essentially the same as the intimidating glare, which, you know, does the same thing. And this actually combos well with the prior feat, because Great Bear is an action that you take as a part of the Avenger form. It's not even a free action, so there's no free action kind of disruption here. So you can use the Great Bear Avenger form essentially, and also do Terrible Transformation to get a demoralized. So for 2 actions, you can transform, use Enlarge, and demoralize a target as well, which is really, really good. And the demoralize gets the same effect as intimidating glare, which means you don't even have to pick up intimidating glare. Granted, you can only do this when you're transforming. Still, really, really good. Fearsome Fangs at level 16 is an amazing feat because all it does is improve your damage. Your jaw attack becomes a D12. That's 2 die increases, going from a D8 to a D12. Really solid. And your claws go up to a D8, making them a D8 agile weapon, which there are not many in the game. And of course, because of the Bear Hug ability, they're a claw attack that you're very likely to use, considering the great benefits that you already get. I do love this, absolutely. This is a really good feat, and it just makes the Ursine Avenger form even better to use. At level 18, you get the Mighty Bear, which is just the better form of Great Bear. You become a huge creature, and it's essentially the same effects as the 4th level Enlarge. You become huge, your range extends even further, and you do a +4 to your damage rather than +2. Very solid, and you just become a literal monster on the battlefield. And of course, it's a part of your going into your Ursine Avenger form anyway. So, I mean, it's just really, really good. There's no downside. This just improves your prior features with no additional costs. It's just really good. And the cherry on top for the level 20 feature, even though that's something that most characters won't get to / won't get to use a lot of, is Immortal Bear. And when you go into your Ursine Avenger form, which is already a huge scary monster, you also get Fast Healing 5. Yeah, you just become more impossible to kill. A barbarian with this just is unstoppable. It's really good. Now, again, this level 20. It's not going to be very common, but still, this artifact archetype has really shown that they are taking a very interesting turn for archetypes. This isn't going to be common, don't get me wrong, but I am expecting some possibly even later, like not as all the way through as these are, but later archetype artifacts that allow you to do even more powerful things if you invest in them later in the game. I think that'd be really cool. This is a very interesting way to make an item more narratively focused around your character, and they're not dedication feats. So you can intermix this with whatever your free archetype build is, picking up whatever feats that you think you like, and then interposing whatever other archetypes you think will add to your build as well. And this is very solid for most martial characters. Even if you're a caster character, there's some benefits that you can get from this. Granted, I wouldn't take it as a caster. And the other artifact archetype, which you'll see in the next video, is more specifically for casters. So check out that video. But for now, this is going to be it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed. Please let me know down below in the comments what you think of these artifact archetypes. Are they good? Are they bad? What's your impression of them? I absolutely love them, and as the archetype guy myself, I think these are just a great new addition. And if you all could do me a favor, we are fastly approaching 2K subs at this point. The channel is growing ridiculously fast, so if you could just smash the subscribe button, I'd highly appreciate it. But I'm not gonna shill any more than that. I'm just gonna go ahead and end this video. So thank you all so much for watching. Good luck with your games. Leave the bad luck to me, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye.